Welcome to Illuminati Silver. We tell the truth about silver. Today is Wednesday, the 9th of June 2021, and we're spending this morning just looking at what the markets are doing, especially precious metals, and also looking to see if there are any changes to current performance likely in the next few days. So let's take a look. Well, let's take a look at today's news, and we can see on Bloomberg the major headlines. Latest on the left-hand side, Ryanair wins EU court challenge to Condor's COVID-19 aid. UK Sunak prepared to accept delay to end of COVID lockdown. That's because of the new strain. And newest meme stocks extend gains as craze shows no sign of fading. Market news, Bitcoin losses have strategists seeing another 40% drop possible. Bitcoin's taken quite a hit, and so has most, not all, but most cryptocurrencies. And the subheading, Bitcoin barrels into death cross as backdrop darkens. El Salvador president says nation adopts Bitcoin as legal tender. And opinion, don't call Bitcoin a bubble, it's an epidemic. For all those critical of cryptocurrencies, and we are very skeptical ourselves, we make no bones about that, but it just shows that even organizations like Bloomberg and most of the news agencies are highlighting cryptocurrencies. So as we've said in previous videos produced this last week, it is an environment that we ignore at our peril. That does not say we think you should necessarily invest in them, but certainly be aware of what's going on. Markets, dollar stalls, yields ease as stock trades mixed. Markets wrap. Boris Johnson's G7 plans get a timely boost from Joe Biden. The fact that the summit has agreed so much already is good news for Boris Johnson. Airbus set to move ahead with an A350 freighter within weeks. And UK pushes for finance exemption from global tax deal. The Chancellor wants to make sure the right companies pay the right tax in the right places. So basically, they are the key headlines. You've got Bloomberg's opinion at the bottom. But let's take a look at what we're all interested in particularly, and that is the price of gold and silver. Before we do that, let's just take a brief look at what the US dollar spot index is doing, and we can see it is down 0.07 at 89.99. The days range has been 89.97, we can see here, and it's been as high as 90.13. So as perhaps for a little time now been hovering either marginally up or marginally below that 90 level. Okay, so we'll have a quick look on Bullion by Post. They've changed their setup, so please bear with me. Price of gold currently, if we look at the top here, in US dollar terms, we can see it's $1,890. Silver's $27.59 and platinum's $1,161. For those living in the UK, gold's £1,333, silver's $19.46, and platinum's $818.85. And those in Europe, gold €1,551, silver €22.64, and platinum €952.37. It's very interesting to still see this relationship between platinum and gold. When I was a child, platinum was always regarded as the most exclusive and expensive of the precious metals. Interesting. Okay, so having a quick look at the chart. This is the day chart for gold. We had a peak here in UK time at, yesterday basically, because there's a 24-hour chart. Yesterday afternoon at 13:37, where we can see that gold actually touched $1,904, so it breached that 1900 level, but then fell back quite considerably, and yesterday closed at something close to 1892. Yes, rose, plateaued, dipped, and we're back into a dip. So going from the high here down to here, we can see there is a slight downward trend currently, but it's holding at 1890 or 1889.51. Looking at the weekly chart, just to put it into perspective, we can see that the high for the week was 1909 and the low 1858. So it's not as low, the market's not as low as it was on Friday before the job figures came out. Moving over to silver, for today's chart, we can see that silver's 27.59, the high has been 27.88 and the low 27.54. So it's pretty close to the day's low. Huge choppiness. We can see a lot of trade going on here in terms of buyers buying and selling, or if you believe the market's totally manipulated, then shorts were backed up with some buying. Again, a similar downtrend to gold. And looking at the weekly chart, it doesn't look quite so bad when you look at it from the week perspective. Again, silver actually, as we announced on our Saturday video, had reached its low on Thursday, whereas gold on Friday. And in spite of that, silver's not as low as that, but the week low was as low as 27.07. That was here. And going back to today, the day's low is 27.54. So we're operating within this $27 to $28.50 sort of level overall. If we have a quick look at Bitcoin, because that's been the exciting one, frankly, these past few days, because Bitcoin's taken quite a hit. And if we look at it on a week basis, we can see it's been as high as $39,000 and as low as $32,000. The current price is just over $33,000. And even in the last 24 hours, this has been the sign, and the rest of the crypto market generally has moved with it, and we can see prices plummeting. And the issue now, going back to Bloomberg, is that Bitcoin fall has strategists eyeing possible drop to $20,000. Another bad week, further weakness in price may bring $20,000 zone into view. It's dangerously approaching the $30,000 level. And for those who follow this market, and we appreciate not many of our listeners necessarily do, the reality is, or appears to be, a fight between those who believe that cryptos have now passed their sell-by date, and those who believe this is just a natural consolidation, and then those who believe that the whales, as they call them, that's WHALES, in other words, the giants in the financial industry, are deliberately placing puts on Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies to get the price down so that they can come in and buy them on the cheap. Whether that's true or not, we shall have to wait and see. Looking at stocks, well, yesterday, you can see certainly the US exchanges, the Dow was down just 30 points. The other indices were marginally up, but more or less, we class this generally ranging from minus 0.09 to plus 0.3 as broadly unchanged. Looking at Europe and the Middle East, where the markets are open currently, we're looking at a slight downtrend, but it's again pretty marginal. Nothing particularly exciting going on here, and Asia not dissimilar. So we're getting a very similar pattern going on here. Going over to our economic calendar, we can see that as far as announcements so far are concerned, on Monday, consumer credit figures for April came in at $19 billion against March is 19 billion, so basically unchanged with a median forecast of 20. Yesterday we had the NFIB Small Business Survey, 99.6 versus 99.8. That's May versus April. The trade deficit in April down 68.9 billion versus down 75 billion the month before. And job openings 9.3 million in April versus 8.3 million. Now today we have wholesale inventories, but as we mentioned in our weekly update, it's tomorrow that we have most of the important economic data for the week, which includes the initial jobless claims, the continuous jobless claims, the consumer price index coupled with the core CPI for May, business formations, okay, household wealth, that's interesting. I don't think that's going to move markets particularly, but it's interesting to note, and the federal budget for May. And then on Friday, just the consumer sentiment index. So that's what we have in terms of economic news. Nothing particularly here other than these pieces of information on Thursday likely to dramatically move markets. We did hear earlier in the week Janet Yellen basically say that she was interested or thought that a higher interest rate environment in the United States may not be a bad thing, and that of course has acted really as a headwind against gold and silver prices, as analysts are thinking there could be a change of sentiment. We think it's a load of rubbish because, quite frankly, at this precise moment in time, until economic data improves dramatically, there is no way that they're going to consider raising rates. Though we all know, those involved in the industry, that the market dictates to a large extent the rates itself, thereby forcing central banks to either increase its amount of bond buying or alternatively the federal government to alternate its fiscal state into a more, shall we say, dovish and supportive environment. So yes, they're talking technically the dollar up and also putting a little bit of fear in the market that rates could rise, which is part of the reason we haven't really seen the bullish trend that the equity markets we would have expected in view of the negotiations going on in terms of the infrastructure spend that Joe Biden is planning on introducing. It will all be short-lived, however, and there will be a fall coming. Not necessarily this week or next week, but a fall nevertheless. And more talk of higher rates, more talk of limiting government support, and more talk of a strengthening of the Fed's approach to monetary policy, becoming more hawkish rather than dovish, will undoubtedly disturb the markets. That's it. Just a brief update. Have a great day. If any news comes out later today that changes the environment, we see no change from our weekly update, quite frankly. If anything, the market's a little bit marginally more negative than positive, but frankly, it's too small to count. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to our channel, not forgetting to press the bell sign so you're notified of our videos as and when they're published. And if you like what you see, please give us a thumbs up as well, or a like push, for the simple reason that it improves the YouTube algorithm. Disclaimer. Illuminati silver owners come from a background of banking, international wealth management and economics. Having now retired from these worlds, we are not qualified to give investment advice. Therefore, this and other productions must not be deemed to be giving such advice and merely represent the personal views of its owners.